record. And here we go. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. That's really the beauty of internet. I have to say that we get to connect to people from different corners of the world. And welcome, Jean. Really
Thank
happy
you.
to have this conversation and to spend this time with you. Again, it's always really a heartwarming moment and lots of fun and joy to be with you. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Yes, as am I. I'm also looking forward to it.
So thank you so much for accepting my invitations. And to start with, um, this topic, because it's really, it has been actually kind of a shock for me even. Still,
Hmm.
I've been working with women around this topic for quite some time. And lately, in one of my uh, small group intimate program, I had a conversation. I had actually a session, private session with one lady.
Hmm.
She was telling about because we were doing the rite of passage of the
Hmm.
first bleeding. She
Hmm.
was, it just woke up the story of her very first bleeding, which was very, actually, she didn't realize how traumatic it was uh, just because she was with her grandma, who just kind of told her to hold and do as if it doesn't exist, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Hmm.
And that's really rude, actually, and violent.
Yeah.
And so I have seen that there is so much actually around this very first a bleeding time, and there is so much we can do for our younger ones.
Yes.
And I know you have children, so uh, if you could maybe first uh, introduce yourself briefly,
Hmm.
so that those who do not know you yet get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tiana. Well, my name is Jean Shem, and I'm empowerment and transformation coach. My business is called Jubilant Spirit. And what I help is to guide women to boldly step into their passion and purpose so that they can be the strong, resilient women that they're meant to be. And so this is kind of a perfect topic, right? Because before we become women, we're girls, right? And we, of course, every girl somewhere around the age of 12, sometimes a little before, sometimes a little bit after, we start out on our menstrual cycle, right? And like you said, Tiana, depending on how or what the conversation was for many of us as young girls, it really determines how we look at ourselves during this time, right? So I this happens to be like one of the topics that I recently visited with my alumni sisters, right? We have an initiative that's going where we have all decided to sponsor young girls, boys as well, but mostly young girls in Uganda.
Mm,
Yeah, in Uganda.
interesting.
And that is one of the primary issues that came up. Many of course, in that country, it's more encouraged for boys to go to school. But for the girls that do go to school, when they're on their periods, they miss so much of school because they're home.
Yeah. Oh, I don't hear you anymore.
You can't hear me?
Now it's okay.
Can't hear me?
Now it's okay.
Okay, okay. All right, okay. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I was saying that these girls miss a lot of school. And that's one of the things that was brought up. How can we keep them in school? And then I found out that it's because they have not been taught how to really care for their bodies when they're going through their menstrual cycles. And so there's a lot of shame and they stay home. So, we have taken on this initiative of keeping them in school. And one of the things that the person that's on the ground there in Uganda suggested is, for them to learn how to use reusable sanitary napkins. But it
Yeah.
goes a lot deeper. It goes a lot deeper. So as we progress, we'll talk some more about that.
Yeah, wow, that's really very timely because,
Mm-hmm.
uh, of course, different cultures, uh, there are different stories going
Mm-hmm.
behind it.
Absolutely.
So before we start, if it's okay with you, Jean,
Mm-hmm.
I would like for us, let me just first not to forget to charge because I think it's hanging and at some point. Um, I would like to propose the a very short exercise.
Okay.
So let's sit comfortably if you can with your back upright. Either you are cross-legged or on a chair. If you are on a chair, have your feet flat on the ground. Feel the connection with the floor. Feel the contact with the ground. Let's do 2, 3 deep breathing. And let's just remember, we all, I believe, do remember our very first bleeding. Let's remember that time. And what I would like you to bring awareness to is about your feeling. How did it feel emotionally? How did it feel in your body? And slowly open your eyes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's so simple. So you have daughters.
I have a daughter.
Oh,
Hmm.
oh yeah, more
Yeah.
boys, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will talk because I think it's important also to talk to the boys. So we will
Oh,
have
yes.
this conversation as well. Um, just from the place where you were right now,
Hmm.
what would you like to tell your daughter uh, when you knew what she was going to cross with that bridge?
Right. So I think for me, because I am one of five girls and I have older sisters, for me, I started my period when I was about 12,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Me too.
Yeah. And
Between 12 and 13, I think.
yes. And I think at that time, because my mom was one of those mothers who had kind of told me what to expect. Um, when it finally came, I think I had a sense of curiosity, like, okay, what is this? And, you know, how is this going to continue for what period of time? I had a lot of curiosity around it, but I didn't really verbalize my curiosity. And I think it was because it was one of those things that you felt like, okay, this is a very private thing. So you keep it private, right? And I just want to share something. The sister that I follow, I remember when hers started, and I remember she was traumatized, even though my mother had spoken to her as well. But her reaction was, oh my gosh, she didn't want to touch herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So whatever was going on energetically inside of her, that's how she responded. Whereas with me, there was a deep sense of curiosity. So when it came time to speak to my daughter, you know, um, I think I kind of shared with her that, this is when your body is changing and, um, you may experience certain, emotions but it's okay. And if you need me, I'm here. So I at that point, I had not learned anything about energy exercises or anything close to that. So I was sharing with her how I felt at that age, And one of the things I said to her was that it was really comforting because the school I went to was an all girls school. And I said it was very comforting because I was, as girls together, we were able to talk about it.
Yeah,
And even though, you still felt like it was very private with your close friends at the school, you could talk about it, right? And we would talk about our experiences wearing sanitary napkins, and some people started trying tampons, but we had a silliness at the same time because we were girls. But we also, I think, for me, I was curious, but I also had a sense of pride, like, whoa, this is another phase of my life, right? But there was a lot of curiosity. And so when it came time to talk to my daughter, that I kind of shared that part of my experience with her. And I think she seemed to accept it that, okay, this is a part of life. She, um, she didn't really get twisted about it or like, oh, or get totally emotional, or she didn't have a lot of mood swings, and that goes with the hormones. But um I think she just kind of like it was like a flow. It's like, okay, this is life and this is where I am. And maybe it was because of the talks I had with her, I don't know.
yeah. That's interesting what you said about your sister. Like, these are, of course, two things: the environment you are in, but also your personal energetic setup.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and there is so much happening at this age, actually, uh, that uh, what I feel, uh, you know, what is really, I think, challenging for the mothers uh, I get to work with, like they have experience and they know how important it is to actually have this realize, because they think like, oh, I wish if when I menstruated first, I wish that someone would tell me
Mm.
that I am entering actually like this sacred space. Uh, at the same time, because of what's happening at this age with teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
they don't know how to actually go about it. Uh, so that's really interesting. Like, even those who have awareness for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
there is still another step, because of course, and they do realize that the fact that they have changed themselves in the way they live their femininity,
Mm-hmm.
it also of course reflects different image of
Yes.
their surroundings. So this is definitely something that helps. uh, Still, when it comes to really communicating, quite few of the ladies I know find it really challenging.
Yes. Yes. And I have spoken to some mothers that they found it really challenging to talk about it. But I think it's maybe because of how it was communicated to them, right?
Yeah.
I think by the time my sister and I are what, like 6 years apart. So I think by the time I got around to having my period, my mom was a lot more open minded, right? As compared to when my sister was having her first period. And so I think there was a lot of caution, like it was like caution, caution. You're entering this phase of your life where you have to be very careful because, you can get pregnant. So there was a lot of caution. And I think my sister might have gone into it very tense, when
Yeah.
it happened, and so she was very afraid of it. She was very afraid of it. So even though my mom spoke to her and told her, that this is a part of life, and I think there was also, I'm thinking because I know, from other things that occurred with us. By the time I got to my teenage years, my mom was a lot more open minded. Um, so I think because of maybe the caution, how she was, uh, like maybe told that you have to be very careful, at this phase of your life. Maybe that's why she reacted that way. I don't know, but I know that that was one of the things, because I remember vividly in my mind, and I was like, "Whoa, why is she?" I remember thinking to myself, "Why is she behaving like that? Like, wow, is it that bad?" you
Yeah.
know and but yet it didn't affect me, even though I saw her and I can still remember it vividly. It didn't affect me in that way when mine came, because I can even remember the underwear that I had on when mine first started.
I do.
Yeah, yeah, because with it be, with my mom having the talk, I kind of was expecting it, right? I kind of was expecting it, and I didn't quite know when it was going to start. Some of the girls at my school, they had already started. And I remember when we, we were getting ready for PE, for physical education, and we're in the changing rooms, as girls, you compare breast sizes and you're like, oh, and I wasn't, I hadn't yet, full, gotten much development here. So I remember they were talking about that and talking about being on their periods, and I'm going, oh, well, I didn't start yet, you know? But then when it came at 12, I was like, whoa, okay, I'm there. So there was a little bit of excitement. There was a whole lot of curiosity, whole lot of curiosity, but I didn't have those tensed moments like my sister did.
Yeah, and that is, I think, really uh, kind of a key. You know, even nowadays, of course, uh, i- at least where we live, it, it's not there anymore. But this fear
Hmm.
of getting pregnant,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
it's actually, it really goes beyond our mother and our grandmother. It's kind of
Yeah,
has
way
a
back there.
years
Hmm.
of collective fear
Hmm. Hmm.
that comes down to us as information. Again, it's not like something that is consciously put there,
Right.
but the information is either in our bloodline or in our collective consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is so much of this fear
Hmm.
that actually is kind of get transmitted
Yes.
from
Yes.
one generation to another, and it, it's really uh, like it's not it, it's not only a fear. There is also, like underneath
Hmm.
the shame,
Yes.
because it was like, you know whenever something happened that a young girl would get pregnant without being married in many
Hmm.
many cultures,
Hmm.
it was a shame on the girl,
Yes.
never ever
On the boy.
on the man or the boy.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true.
and
And even today.
and even today,
Hmm.
so this is one of, I would say, collective traces, imprints that every and each one of us actually can address.
Yeah.
Because the more of us get to heal those parts, the more we also heal the collective.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And this, I have quite a similar experience like you, like the curiosity.
Hmm.
I was really very fortunate that I grew up in, actually, uh, I grew up in a really natural environment. So we
Hmm.
didn't have all this disposable pads.
Right. Hmm.
We had actually to wash it every month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that basically it was just part of life. Like I've seen my mother, my
Right.
aunts,
Yes. Yes.
uh, there was, because my mother has many sisters, so you can be sure almost the whole period of a month there is always some hanging, drying out there.
Oh, oh. My
You
mother
know,
told me that when she was young, that's what she had to do. Hmm.
so in a way, of course, that was quite just open. It was just part of
Right.
you. So you know what's happening. And when I was, sometimes I would go with either my mother, my grandmother, or my aunt,
Hmm.
to the river to wash. Uh,
Oh.
to do laundry basically,
Mm-hmm.
and of
Mm-hmm.
course you see blood is coming out.
Right.
uh, so somehow there was a natural knowing of it. And also at school my friends started to have it, so it was kind of it's always curiosity, like, oh, when I'm gonna get it. So at the same time
Yes.
I was curious to get it, but at the same time I have to say when I had it, uh, then I was not so happy because I realized it was not very handy. I spent my days, climbing the trees, and always so, but was not very handy. But all in all, it was like kind of just part of life because it was
Right.
generally open. There was
Yes. Yes.
no, let's say I didn't feel any taboo around it.
Yeah, neither did I. I didn't at all. Even when we were around the male friends that we had, I
Yeah,
didn't feel, a sense of like discomfort or shame. It was just accepted as a part of life.
yeah. So
Yeah.
in that sense, I think we were very fortunate.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
um, while actually I was talking about uh, a rite of passage of first bleeding,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and this is so important because what actually is missing,
Mm-hmm.
apart from the fact that we can get really uh, to have this kind of trauma impacting our whole life. Um, what is missing when we do not have this kind of real introduction
Mm-hmm.
to our actually power is that
Well,
we lose
most of the
our,
time it's not
yeah,
right.
exactly,
It's not introduced as power.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that we do not own our power, and
Mhm.
we do not realize, and this is a very sad part of it,
Yeah.
we do
Mm-hmm.
not realize the sacredness of it.
Right.
And it, this is like something where I really, you know, uh, start to feel and to also to experience, because I've seen it in so many women, the moment, regardless of the age, be it at 30, 35, 40, 60, 65, the moment they get to own this power of the first bleeding, that's a life transformation.
Yeah. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is because so many women have been traumatized by their first period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's so crucial. Well, we have this conversation with our young
Mm-hmm.
ladies,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
that how can we convey, because even um I always talk about it, like, just look, of course nowadays we have the possibility to get information on either, also at school we get some education, so we kind of know the, let's say, scientific background,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but still just look at many commercial on women's pad.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like in France, it has been always you have a pad and they pour in a blue, a light
Yeah.
blue
Yeah.
liquid.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time where I don't know how many years ago, where people said that's just not normal. And even this, it looks like really wow. What's the heck? It's just a commercial, but the young girls get to see that every single time, and then you get to compare. You see, like, oh my gosh, mine doesn't look like a light blue,
E-
nice light blue. It just
Exactly.
bloody deep red,
Yes.
or it's pinkish.
Right.
But it's not like a liquid. It's more viscous. Whatever it is, it's
Right.
different.
And what about those times when they have clotting,
Yeah,
right? It doesn't look anything like the commercial.
no. So even these little things make you feel like something is not quite right
Right.
in me. You
Yes.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So we get to talk about even those, the really basic aspect of it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think, subliminally, the world is always teaching us something about ourselves that is not quite like ourselves, right? And so, especially when young girls, like you say, look at commercials like that, and they see this liquid that's going right through, it's getting absorbed, and here it is, my period doesn't look like this on my sanitary napkin. Like I said, it might have some clotting. There is different colors, different variations of the red, right? um and
There-
it doesn't quite always like seep all the way through. You have to know when. Some people bleed heavier than others. You have to know when to change your sanitary napkin to give you that feeling of comfort, right? To make you feel comfortable. And sometimes young girls just don't know this, not unless they're taught. I remember one girl in my school, she just thought that she didn't know, right? Until because she came from one of those homes. I think she was raised by her grandmother. And so that was not a topic of conversation. That was not something you talked about because it there was a little bit of shame around it. Oh, that's a private woman moment for woman. You keep that to yourself. And that was the environment she grew up in. And I remember her when we had our first when they had introduced sexual education to my school, and they were teaching us about our bodies and about how to use sanitary napkins and tampons, and she didn't know that she was supposed to change her sanitary napkin. So from the time she left home and got to school, she was sitting in this thing and she was sitting in discomfort because because nobody ever sat her down and say, okay, you're supposed to take that one off depending on how heavy you bleed, uh and change it, replace it with another one, because it only can absorb but so much. So we constantly have to remember that for each person, for each individual, they have a different story
yeah,
based on how it was introduced to them, what their first experience was. Many people have some people have mood swings, and they don't understand that, right? They don't understand that, and they think that there's something wrong with them because maybe they may see someone else that behaves as normal, and then they think, oh, what is happening with me? Or they break out with acne. I've seen girls, I went to an all girl school, and their bodies reacted differently.
Yeah.
And sometimes it became a little bit, I could see the discomfort in them to talk about their reactions. I will tell you something. I remember I was about maybe about 15. And you know, when you are going through a lot of stress, when you're on your cycle, when you're on your menstrual cycle, it's, you see, well, for me, my experience was that I would bleed heavier because of the stress, right? And so I was in my exams. And I remember I used to get, you know, on my first day, a little bit of cramping. And it was my first day. And I think it was the stress of the exams. I bled all over my uniform. And you know, the thing about it, I remember them sending me to the sick room. I remember my friend, my very good friend, we going into the bathroom with me, and we took my uniform off, and she helped me wash my uniform out. You know, they gave me you know, it, at that point, even though that had happened to me, I, there wasn't a sense of shame because we all were girls, and even though you had male teachers in the school, it wasn't something that I remember passing any of them. I just remember going to the sick room. I remember being with my friend in the bathroom. You know, I remember that it was the nurse and a female teacher that was right there. So I didn't have that. But I've seen other girls go through so much, you know, discomfort, so much shame that they would cry, and it would make them feel very uncomfortable. But then I found out later, um, as the years wore on, that, you know, they grew up in a very restrictive, very tense household. You know, maybe with with a female that had a very much older mindset, that thought, oh, there's a lot of shame around this. You know, you have to be careful because your body's cleansing, and this is a point when you're supposed to, you know, be still and not talk about this. And yeah, so these images that we see, we have to also be having the conversations with our girls, you know, to let them know that that doesn't portray what you're going to experience.
Yes, definitely. And
Hmm.
what you shared with your friend uh,
Hmm.
is actually, you know, for me, this through all time, uh, the circle of women
Hmm.
has been important
Yes.
because of the support. And it's, I would say, you know, for the mothers who find it challenging sometimes to talk about this topic with their daughters, um, you know, also look where their daughters can get the support from other women,
Yeah.
uh, either their friends or, you know, other members of family or friends, because this circle, we need it so much. And um, in many cultures, unfortunately, throughout the years, it has changed, the meaning has changed. But in many cultures, if we imagine in the time where people were living, you know, in villages,
Yeah.
there was, or there used to be, a house which was usually a little bit out of the village, in the outskirt of the village, and it was the women's house. So
Yes.
this was the
Yes.
this was a place where women would go
Mm.
when they menstruate.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so the 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 really actually interesting thing is originally this place, because when we menstruate, it's a time where we naturally go inward,
Yes.
when we
Yes.
naturally meditate,
Mm-hmm.
when we
Mm-hmm.
naturally connect with our deeper self.
Yes.
So this women's house was actually meant, it was a sacred place, and it has an important role because when the women went there, they were meditating or doing some healing rituals
Oh.
for the whole village. So they were the keeper of a healing.
Oh, wow.
And the place was really a sacred place in that sense because they were
Right.
healing themselves, they were initiating the younger generation,
Yeah.
and they were really the keeper of healing of the community.
Ah.
Unfortunately, with time, and we can see now this in places like, I still know recently in Nepal, uh, like 2 years ago, a young girl died because what has happening because of this power thing, it
Mm-hmm.
has been turned around that the women had to go to a special place when they menstruate because they are impure.
Oh, oh, yes. I've heard that in some cultures. Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
this came later on in the
Mm-hmm.
history,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, it is kind of still alive in some part of the world.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's so much, you just shift, and the whole thing becomes completely different.
Yeah.
Uh, and what I feel is coming back to, the support of other women,
Mm-hmm.
like, just because what they were doing is they were holding actually a healing space.
Yes. Yes.
um this I think is something that, let's say, we need to create in our current society,
Yes. Yes.
in whichever form it it is, of course, relevant nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in all cases, as much advanced as we are technologically speaking,
Yeah.
this support is something that we need.
I agree. I agree. I would say for this part of the world, I think that it's gone completely to the other end of the spectrum. The sacredness of what is taking place in our bodies is not something that's taught. It's not something that's observed. It's not something that's upheld. And so there is almost a lack of lack of caring as to the sacredness
Yeah,
of the feminine energy in the body, right? And so it's just taken like, okay, well, this is something that happens. Oh, well, I can just go out my life. I can do this. I can do that. And they don't really take it as a time that we should go within. We should really be able to harness our power at that point, right?
yeah,
Um, so there's so many different levels of conversations that need to take place around the menstrual cycle, as it pertains to our young girls, because maybe then they would value, they would have a little bit more value for themselves, because
Yes,
a lot of that is missing, especially, in this part of the world.
I fully
Hmm.
agree. I fully agree. And, I feel part of it is actually, whenever it's possible, of course, for us also to have a
Hmm.
conversation with our mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not about, going and saying, you didn't tell me this and that you should have, I wish you would have, but having a conversation.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, and, if you have the great fortune to have your mother still alive, I definitely recommend to anyone to have this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember from my mother. My mother lost her mother when she was 7 years old. So she didn't have the presence of her mother to really have that talk with. And I don't know if she had her in her life, if she would have been able to. I don't know. But she lost her mom when she was 7 years old. So she was brought up more so by an older sister who was already married. Um, and my mother and my father, I think they got married. They got together when they were 17, and shortly after that, they were married. So maybe many of the things that my mom learned as a young girl probably came from her older sister. Probably came from her older sister. But my mom, my dad was the only man she ever knew, and that was her lifelong love. And my mom transitioned at 91 years old, and she lived a full life. Um, but she was not, I wouldn't say my mom was one of those that would sit closed mouthed. If you sat down to have a conversation with her, you got a conversation. You got a conversation. And so she would tell you about stuff. I remember my mom even, about childbearing. Um, but my mom would always tell you that as a woman, you value yourself,
Wow.
and but I think if she knew more about the power of us with our first flow, our first menstrual flow, I think she would have gotten a lot deeper with that, because she was that kind of person. But she did the best with what she knew.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I have to tell you that I appreciated having her in my life. I do. Um, I know not everyone was as fortunate, because I know many of my friends, would tell me that, God, your mom was so cool to talk to, because she was just one of those kinds of people. Um, but in today's world, like you said, sometimes if we still have our moms, it would be great to sit and talk with them, even our grandmothers, right?
Yes, yeah,
Because in sharing their experiences, sometimes it can help us to heal where we are in this journey. Um, and I see where there's so many young women now. There's so many young women now, and I appreciate you for having this conversation, because there's so many young women and older women who need to really heal that part of themselves,
yeah,
and oftentimes, because yes, because for them it might have brought a lot of shame. There might have been a lot of secrets around, you know, them having their menstrual flow, that they have lived their lives up until the point where they are right now as such. And maybe things have unfolded quite differently than it would have if they were led into this a different way. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Because, you know, like I mentioned before with the girls in Uganda, when I found out that, wow, they have to stay home when they're on their menstrual cycles, and many of them didn't even have what they need to accommodate them when they're going through their menstrual flows. That was quite shocking, because here where we are in America, we everything, you know, we have everything, so we take everything for granted, right? And even where I grew up in Jamaica, I had everything. So you kind of think that everybody everywhere is the same, but it's not, right? So now we have it was we were brought back to what my mom and my grandparents and, you know, the grandmothers and great grandmothers used, which was the reusable sanitary napkins, the ones that they wash. And it was interesting when the woman that's in Uganda, she took videos of these young girls as they were training them how to use it. And one young girl, she, you know, it's a group of girls, and she's in front of the class and she has the underwear, and she's not quite sure where to put this reusable pad. She's not quite sure, you know, because of course no one in her family ever sat down with her and had that conversation and said, okay, this is something that's going to happen. You know, it's a natural part of, you know, your life as a female. It's something that should make you feel your inner value. Nobody ever. So there was shame, and going in front of the, you know, class and holding it up. She put it on her hip, and some people would laugh and say, oh my gosh, it's not just a natural thing to know where should go. But if you have a lot of fear around something, or you have a lot of uncertainty, or you have a lot of shame, it makes your mind a little clouded, right? You don't have clarity. And so, and maybe you're afraid to ask, right? Because this is
Definitely.
a shameful
Yeah.
thing. This is a thing that makes me feel tensed. So I realized that even this is 2021, there's still a lot of work to be done, because us as women, we're powerful creative beings. And if we're still being limited in our thinking as it comes to our bodies and what is a natural cycle, right, that we experience from the time we're in our teens up until a certain point of adulthood, we should be quite comfortable to step into that part of our life powerfully, right? So we can
Yes.
own it, and we can own each part of our journey. Um, there's a lot of work to be done. And so I really applaud you for the work that you
Thank you.
do. Yeah, I do, because sometimes we overlook situations in um, many women's lives, and we think it's just merely because of the choices they make, but it also it stems from the conditions of their mind
Yep.
and the experiences that they've had. Yes, yes.
Yes.
So
And
we have to break, you know.
definitely. And you know, that's such a the what you're doing with this group of people. You know, this is the um, getting the wisdom into action, and
Yes,
we need
yes,
that too. Like, of course, we cannot help if we ourselves have not helped ourselves. So it always comes first with us. And when we awaken our awareness, our inner wisdom, then we can help others to awaken to their own wisdom. And this
Yes.
is really so important because, um, you know, what you are saying is like sometimes you really need to go to some basic, and it doesn't matter where in the world it is happening.
It doesn't matter.
That sometimes we just need uh, to go to the basic, and this actually I would say we need to go with it with ourselves.
Yes.
Like how
Yes.
many of us has been really so curious about the texture of their menstrual blood,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
how it changes depending on what we eat.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so we get to go to to this basic and to the physicality of things.
Yes.
uh there's sometimes, in the spiritual world, and again it's not criticism, but sometimes we tend to want to fly somewhere. Everyone is so looking to open their third eye,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to go first to our physicality.
Yes.
We need to,
Mm-hmm.
we are incarnated beings, so we need to
Mm-hmm.
embody.
Yes.
So where we go is, I would say, exactly what you were saying. We don't, it's not about laughing because someone doesn't know. These are basics we all need to be aware of,
Yes. Yes. I totally agree with that.
because from there we can realize
Mm-hmm.
the sacredness.
Yeah. Instead of looking at it as, oh, this is unfortunate or this is dirty, because a lot of women are made to feel like they're dirty.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they're so unclean.
Yeah, and you know, it's a really actually amazing. And I just wrote a post on Instagram about it. Like, let's take a minute
Mm-hmm.
to go back into our body and just bring your awareness in the area of your uterus, your ovaries. So just in the lower belly, your sexual organs. And just smile. Smile from your heart, smile from your eyes to this part of your body. And I invite you to realize that in your ovaries, you have the energy that is able, not able, the energy to create life. And there is nothing more powerful in the universe than creating life. That much power is in your body. And slowly open your eyes. And let that sink. I really invite anyone to do this every day, to let it really sink in.
Yes.
Because once we realize this, not only intellectually, but really realize this, then we can start to own our power.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Jen. I
Thank
think
you, Tiana.
we will close here for today. And
Hmm.
I know there's still so much to share.
Yes. Yes.
And I definitely would like to hear more about this project you have in Uganda.
Yes. Mhm.
So if you agree, we will schedule another session on to continue this conversation.
Yes. Yes. I would like to. I would definitely like to. And I would say to anyone that is listening that, this is such an important topic. And if you are curious about anything or you'd like to learn more, send Tiana your questions so that we can address them because I really do
Yes,
believe,
definitely.
yeah, yeah, I really do believe that, this is a point. We're at this point now when there's so much being revealed and we have to start, being aware, like you said, of our bodies and the power that we have within. So send your questions in so that the
Yeah.
next time we come on board, we can talk about them.
Yes, and yeah, either way, you can contact Jean as well. Maybe you can put your details under the video so
Okay,
that people
I will.
know where to find you. And if you have any comment or question, just feel free either to put your questions under the video, and if it feels more private, feel free to contact either Jean or me. We'll be delighted to address them next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
Tiana, for
much.
having me.
A real pleasure. I will be posting also the replay for those who would like to watch somewhere else, and we'll give you the link. Um, Again, it's now really, we opened, I think, a Pandora box here.
Yes,
So
yes,
definitely, I'm happy that we get to share this. And please, if you know someone who would benefit from this, please share because I really do believe that the more people talk about this and bring more awareness, the better for everyone.
yes, 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 absolutely. So I hope that we can get together again soon. I really would
Yes,
love to continue this conversation and maybe, maybe take it even a little bit further because, there's even when it comes to a woman's sexuality. It's
Yeah.
how she looked at her first, her first foe. So I really want us to be able to talk more deeply about this.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Jen. And so see you very soon.
Yes, yes. So we will get together again soon. And I
Yeah.
thank everyone that joined us and everyone that will watch the replay.
Yes. Okay. Much love to all. And
Okay.
yeah, stay tuned. We'll be back very
Yes.
soon.
Yes. Yes. Bye bye.
Okay.